Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. Time for another show. This time, I think we're going to record this thing. We tried yesterday, as usual. And, for those of you who found that there was no recorded podcast available for you yesterday via Libsyn, via, I don't know, any one of the, some people pick it up at Patreon, some at, I don't know. Podcasts are us, for all I know, is everywhere. But no recorded show yesterday. What happened? What happened was we had such a backlog of archiving to do here that the hard drive on the big show computer finally filled up. And I got a notice about it, and it said that this was a problem. I didn't think it was going to immediately manifest itself this way. But what it did was it essentially said we don't have the memory to store this recording. And I ended up, at the end of the day, when I expect to open up a 2-hour recording and have it edited down, we then found that there was about 31 minutes worth of recording of something, and not all of it was particularly helpful, and there was no way to reconstruct even part of the show out of it. It was really quite a mess. So I spent all day yesterday clearing things off and archiving everything and trying to stay up to date so that there should now be plenty of space for the recording, and we won't run into that problem again. So historical landmark. I think in all the years we've been doing this, the first time we haven't come away with a recorded, archived copy of the show. So if you heard it live yesterday, you heard all there is to it. It's disappeared to history. It's like it never happened, which I wish was a trick we could try on some other parts of our lives. Anyway, lots of other things to catch up on. I didn't erase the news from yesterday. Unfortunately, that's not happening, and we're only about 3 days away now. We got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to find a way to avoid a government shutdown. If people are interested in doing that, the House of Representatives has expressed some interest in doing that. All Republican votes, save one, Jared Golden. Is that right? What's his name? Is it Golden? Anyway, he's marching to the beat of a different drummer, I guess you could say, and I'm sure his constituents will let him know about that. One Democratic vote among the entirety of the House of Representatives for the continuing resolution, which, as I told you yesterday, and maybe you didn't hear it because you didn't tune in live, Republicans have been just telling reporters this is a clean CR. And everyone knows that everyone needs to be for clean CRs, and that in the recent past, everybody has joined in voting for clean CRs, except, of course, all Republicans. When Democrats offer something like a clean CR, it should also be a lesson by now that hardly anybody ever really offers a truly clean CR. There's always some tinkering going on. Some of them are cleaner than others. This one, not clean at all. And it was just a total abuse of the term. They made all sorts of spending changes. As you know, that's normally what a new majority will do, or even an old majority that's renewed will do that. They'll spend to their own priorities, but then you just say so. And so it's a bit odd that they, of course, say, well, it's a clean CR. We're doing things the old way, holding over from Biden budgets, but we're really not actually doing that. Anyway, so they managed to squeak by. That now goes to the Senate. They've got the time if they want to accept it in House form. Some question about whether or not they're going to do that, but I know that they don't really want to have a shutdown. House has skipped town, so it's one of those take it or leave it sort of deals. On the other hand, even without an actual government shutdown forced by a lack of available appropriations, the Trump administration, or rather the Elon Musk administration, is shutting down parts of the government left and right anyway. So for, let's say, half the workforce at the Department of Education this morning, there's no difference between a government shutdown and normal workaday operations because their building was closed. And half of the staff is being laid off, and they just closed it and just said, nobody comes to work tomorrow, and we can clean the place out. And then I don't know what. what comes next. We'll see. I think they are, as they said, planning to get rid of about half of the gang there. Now for some reason, I should have tested this ahead of time. Greg's ringing is not coming through. Hold on, Greg. You know what? It thinks I haven't signed in to Skype on the big computer for some reason, and that's new. Hold on. I'll have to fix that. I was distracted by our testing of the new system that we're going to use later, which is got nothing whatsoever to do with this one. But as you know, we usually use Skype. They're shutting down Skype, and holy moly. Okay, let's see. Password. I haven't had to enter this in 10,000 years. Let's see if this is it. I don't even know. I might have to go through the whole forgot password thing. This might be an easy way to... Oh, boy. Well, we've created all sorts of problems for ourselves here, Greg. This is not going to be great. Let's see if I can't... Too bad. We should never have tried to set up... What do you call it? The new system, Zoom, in the lead up to a show in the morning. There's just not enough time for this stuff. Okay. Yeah. Hold on a second. All I can say is, yeah. Okay. Skype signed me out. All right. Well, this is not going to let me do that to you. Okay. Greg, you're going to have to hold on and call back again later. Skype on the Zoom computer, or the big computer, has signed me out thanks to our attempt to sign into Zoom, and now I have to sign in all over again. So hold on, and we'll try and make it quick. All right, so that happened on the laptop, so maybe it could have turned up the sound there. It would have just sounded terrible. Now, all right, let's see. Any idea how this is going to work? Probably not. It's going to make me reset my password, which means I'm going to have to reset my password over on the other computer too. This has been fantastic. All right, I really appreciate all of this. Hang on, everybody. Never test anything in the 10 minutes prior to the show. That's a foolish idea, and we should never do that. Okay, let's see. Let's see. I've got it. Now I got to go get a code. That should be fun. I got to go over to Microsoft account reset thing. Here's my code. That's working. This is an exciting show, isn't it? It's fantastic. Lots of news happened yesterday, but let's do this instead of having communications during the show. Okay. Make up a new password and go from there. I'm going to have to work on a better password later. I don't have the mental faculty to do all of this now. Let's see. So, all right. Now, that's interesting. So please reset your password. All right. I did do that. Now type in your password. Oh, that's a different story. Getting there. This is really convenient. I'm super happy about this. Oh, look at this. Sign in is blocked. Why? Because someone is entering the wrong password too many times. I haven't re-entered my password even one time. This is fantastic. You know what? Microsoft is really easy to use and fun. All right, let's see here. Yes. Okay. Oh, boy. This is going to take me forever. Want to try a 10? Sure, Greg. That'd be fine. We can do that. I don't know whether I'm going to have any way of communicating with you at 10, nor do I know whether I'll have imparted any news to anyone before 10, because I'm going to have to get this in order to get this working in order to, be able to talk to you at 10. This is working out pretty good. All right, let's see. One more time. We'll try the code that they've given me here. Do I want to try Thursday? Look, man. We'll try anything. All right. Let's see. Okay. One more second here. And I re-enter my password. Let's see. Okay. Maybe this will work. We shall see. Okay. Well, all right. We might have to try again another day. What can I tell you? Everything is screwed up. Hooray. I'm very happy about this. All right. Fantastic. Never, by the way, one more time. One more warning for everybody. Never ask to test a new system in the morning. All right. Looks like I guess we could try Zoom. You want to try Zoom? It's all set up. I don't know whether it's going to have any audio or not. We never tried it for that before, and it may or may not capture in my soundboard, but this will be really interesting. And now the other question is, can I access any of your stories that you've sent me now that I've allegedly changed my password? All right. Here's some news that happened. Let me see. I'm going to have to just go back to my own storehouse of we still have Pocket. That's still working. Yesterday was the big Tesla purchase day, although there's no evidence that Donald Trump actually purchased anything. He parked a bunch, or I guess Elon Musk caused a bunch of Teslas to be parked at the south portico of the White House yesterday. And that was of some interest. Allegedly, the idea was that he was going to purchase a Tesla for reasons. Now, we're not sure what the reasons are exactly. I think the publicly offered reason was that he felt bad, maybe. I don't think he does that. But he felt bad, I guess, that Tesla had lost such a tremendous amount of its value. Oh, okay. So now we're going to... We've switched over. Yes, okay. As I mentioned, we might try to use Zoom for this instead today. And guess what Zoom will require? Zoom will require us to look for the new settings to try to turn off the audio notifications every time a new message is sent over. But I don't know where those audio notifications are, and you don't know where those audio notifications are. That's the important thing. None of us should know. AI will certainly fix it for us. I'm sure of that. All right. Well, we got a bunch of DMs. Goodness. All right. You know what, Greg? You want to try to call via Zoom? We might as well. The whole thing is just falling apart at that point. We might as well have another voice on here as well. I don't know what we do in order to do it, or maybe I can call you in the middle of it too. Let's see. No, voice messages. We don't want to do that. What would be the way to do this? You're typing, so that's it. I guess that ought to take care of it. I think I click here on meetings. We could do that. See if that works. Contact, connect, calendar. Oh boy. All right. This is going to be real fun. Why don't you work on that one and I'll work on nothing. Okay. So, as I mentioned, the cars were lined up yesterday. Donald Trump climbed into one of them. I saw on a video clip circulating on social media. I don't know whether he climbed into all of them. He claimed along the way to have bought a Cybertruck for one of his granddaughters. I have my doubts about that. I mean, it's always a possibility, but my guess is that teenage girls probably want to have nothing whatsoever to do with Cybertrucks. I mean, you get a free car. I guess that's kind of exciting. But if you're a Trump grandchild, you're probably getting free cars all the time. So I don't know. Anyway, I always, I thought the whole thing was ridiculous, as most of you probably did. But I also thought that there was almost no chance that Trump would actually have paid for the car, which was supposed to be the point of the stunt, which I don't even know why that, because the guy he was buying a car from is far richer than he is. My guess was that he was simply going to do it as a stunt and then make Elon give him the car. I also thought that he might have tried, listen to that. That's an interesting new sound effect. Let's try that. That would be Greg calling via, what the hell are we using? Good morning, Greg. Are you there? No. All right. Yes, probably, but no in terms of actually making things work. All right, let's see. Oh, I can hear myself, which is annoying.
Well, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, but I hear a big echo in my... I don't know, does it echo... Does my voice echo to you?
Well, it did because I had the Netroots stream on just so I could figure out what was going on. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I don't know whether
okay?
anybody else can hear you. Oh, I don't know. Well, why would I know what's going on in this show?
I don't know. This is kind of fun. So,
maybe
when we say do not try this at home, we're professionals. This is what we're referring to.
I see. Well, let me see if I can hear you. You speak again for a moment.
Okay. I'll speak as much as you wish.
All right.
The weird thing is that Skype and Zoom didn't try to sign me out from each other. I have both open. They're both working. So I don't know what happened at your end.
I think, well, yeah. Yours is one thing. I don't know what happened to the... I think I tried to sign in to Zoom without an independently established Zoom account, but using Google instead, and then I don't know what. Now okay. I'm signed out to everything, and I hear myself 5 times.
All right. Well, I'm on Zoom. We're on Zoom. We have a chat going. We can hear each other. We have no idea if anybody else could hear us. There's no video because my monitor doesn't have video, so that's not an issue. So this is the future because Skype is disappearing. That's why all of this is happening.
Yes, but not until May. In other words, we could have spared you
We could have left it for the last minute and screwed up on, May 1st, but we decided to screw up in March instead.
Yeah, at the first minute. The first minute we found out that this could be screwed up, we went right to it.
Well, we're professionals. We have to work out all the different ways we can screw things up.
Yeah, okay. I have no idea how I'm going to get rid of this echo, but I'll just sound like I'm at the bottom of a well. That's
well, it doesn't sound that way at this end.
Oh, okay. Just for me, and
just
I'm not important to this at all. Okay. Well, tell us a story about what happened.
So now we're on the Zoom meeting, and there's a thing at the bottom that says chat.
Yeah.
And if I put that on, then I suppose I could chat there. And the question on the table is, can you see things that I send? Because that'll be where the raft of stories is.
I think I do see things. I'm seeing a lot of things.
Yeah. So I just sent a tweet by Meredith McGraw, who pointed out that Greenland voted for a party that's never held power, but which took a strong stance against Trump's bid to control the mineral-rich island.
Okay.
They just had an election. That was part of the news. And interestingly, the ruling party came in third.
Okay.
The people that came in second are pro-independent, at least I'll listen to Trump party.
Okay.
Who's also never been in power. Because Greenlanders don't want any part of America, but they do want independence from Denmark at some point. The party that won at least got the most votes, because remember, nobody has a coalition. This is Europe, so everybody's going to go into coalition, and nobody's going to know who's going to go into coalition with whom, which is part of the story. But the party that got the most votes wants independence from Denmark, but slowly. The party that got the second most votes, which is more pro-Trump than the first party, wants a faster independence track. The third party, which was more leftist and was the ruling party, came in third. So the question is, who will the first party go into coalition with? And we don't know yet. And because we don't know any of this, MSNBC wrote it up as election good for Trump.
Oh.
Because the second most vote-getting party didn't have bad things to say about him. And independence from Denmark somehow may fit into Trump's plans. And it's a really convoluted way of saying that it's good for Trump. It's really not, because Greenlanders made it very clear they don't want any part of America, and the party that got the most votes has a big Trump critic as part of what they're doing. So no way, shape, or form does that mean that this is good news for Trump? This is like good news for John McCain. Everything in the world isn't good news for Trump.
Okay. Well, that's different. It's nice to see that the McCain legacy doesn't carry over in that way.
Right. So that part is good. Speaking of international stuff, tariffs are on and off and on and off and on and off. And the stock market is not especially happy with it. Wall Street Journal today, Trump's economic message is spooking some of his own advisors. They're starting to argue about what's it mean. The Commerce Secretary, I think his name is Howard Lutnick.
Yes, I think so.
Mark that name because he's going to be the first one to go under the bus for screwing up Trump's plans because he keeps announcing Trump's plans. And not only does he keep announcing Trump's plans, but apparently everybody in the White House already hates him. So they're perfectly happy to have him be the person to throw under the bus because Trump's economic platform is simply unpopular.
All right. Not unexpected.
Right. Meanwhile, inflation report comes in today. It's about what's expected, maybe a 0.1% better. So inflation isn't flying out of control. And what that means is more interesting politically than it is anything else. Fact of the matter is that when we're getting this month's economic numbers, it's looking at last month and the month before. In other words, Trump's tariffs haven't really been priced in yet to what's going on with these numbers.
Okay. Why
Trump's
not?
tariffs are going to make things more expensive. Trump's tariffs are going to raise inflation. But you're not going to see them in these numbers. So what do you do with that? Well, if you're a Republican who's smart on messaging, you'll say, look, anything that's good that's happening in the economy right now is because Trump is president. And anything that's bad that's happening in the economy right now is Biden's fault.
I see.
So if consumer confidence is dropping as of this week compared to last week, that must be Biden's fault somehow, not mine. But if inflation numbers come in and they're good, better than expected, even by a 0.1, that's me. That's not Biden. Because the Biden economy was terrible. Everybody knows that. Except these numbers look really good. Now, if you're a Republican, you don't have any problem with this messaging or the internal conflicts because basically the message is Trump good, Biden bad. I wish Democrats could somehow internalize this because really the message is Biden's economy is good and Trump is wrecking it because he's bad. That's the message, and that's really what the Democrats have to be consistent with.
Okay. Now I think I've found a button somewhere in the settings that's making the audio quality that much better. I think.
Oh, good.
So all right, that's good. It was very sensitive with the microphone. Same microphone.
Don't hit the mute button. Don't hit the.
Oh my gosh! It was picking up every single possible sound, every click of the mouse. But I think things have just cleaned up. So I was half listening, half exploring the setups.
Well, that's what makes the show fun.
Yeah.
Like nobody can predict what's going to happen.
Okay. All right. Well, this seems better. At least it's better in my headphones, and that's super important because that echo was like, hello, Greg.
I learned how to mute my audio so I could cough.
Yeah. Oh.
That's important.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Although I don't think so. Not on that one.
Did you see the messages that I'm sending on the mute meeting? On the Zoom meeting?
I don't know. It depends if I go to Zoom or not. I'm trying. Yeah, I can see them when they come. And in fact, now I've got one set up where it's got a nice picture of you. Yeah. But no video. Yeah, more or less looks like Skype. And okay, down good. On the side here, although, let me see. Earlier when I was looking, they had all the very nice, when you sent a link, it would embed the picture and everything.
Yeah, this just sent a link and you can't really see that.
Yeah. In this setup where I have you in your, there was another section setup that I was looking at that had the nice tiles and everything every time you sent a link.
That's in the DM section. This is the actual meeting section.
All right. Well, a link is good too.
But I'm sending the links as we speak.
All right.
In the chat so that you could see them as we go along.
Excellent. All right. Well, the echo apparently the echo didn't come across the stream anyway, so that was good news. Nobody heard that, just me being, but now it's gone, and now I think the signal is boosted. I believe we were kind of the signals were split. Stereo, you were on one channel and I was on another, and that probably gave everybody a headache. Sounds like it's working now. That's the big news in Washington D.C.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So the next story I
time
sent
for a break. Yeah.
is the new CNN poll, and that's what we'll do after the break.
Okay. We're not quite there yet, though. You got a minute. Well, half of it will be in music, but we got a minute and a half or so. Let's.
A minute and a half. Well, so then we can talk about it a little bit. So there's a new CNN poll. Americans are negative on Trump's handling of the economy.
Okay. Well, he's terrible at it.
After the break, we'll give you all the warnings about don't assume that Americans will hold Trump responsible. But actually, the CNN poll says Americans are holding Trump responsible. Americans are not impressed with Trump's stewardship of the economy, putting him underwater in the nation's top issue, even as he sees ratings among the best of his presidential career on other key priorities. When they say best, they're talking about 51-49.
Mm-hmm. That's
like
it. That's
immigration, his best one. 51% positive, 7 points higher than at any point during his first term.
Mm-hmm.
And federal budget, 48 approve, 48 disapprove. Lower ratings for his work on healthcare policy, 43%, foreign affairs, 42%, tariffs, 39%. Those are actually pretty low numbers. Yeah. And his overall job approval rating is 45 approve, 54 disapproving. That really sucks, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
And then he's only like, a couple of months in.
Yeah. Well, right. It's supposed to be a honeymoon.
Yeah. This matches his highest rating for his first term in office.
Wow.
45% to 54%.
That's interesting.
People don't like him.
But he would.
I get that he won the election. That's half the Democrats' fault, half his fault.
Yeah.
But people do not like him.
Oh.
And they still don't like him.
Hi everybody, this is Scott Anderson, your summary guy. Were you looking forward to an egalitarian democracy free of bigotry, misogyny, racism, and greed, where people of different appearances, belief, and heritage had a right to live without fear, and everyone could expect a basic level of health, stability, and safety throughout their life? Well, too bad. The plain fact is that we're heading in the wrong direction. And where we once had a voice in such things, increasingly we don't. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. However, if you're looking to join people who understand today's issues and can intelligently address the reality of today from your point of view, you can join us at Kagro in the morning. As you know, there aren't many of us out there, at least compared to them. We need to stick together, and by that I mean send us money. That is contributions to patreon.com, secure, reoccurring contributions. Those contributions keep this show in the air and us together. We've been through a lot together. The temporary loss of the presidency, we hope. The temporary loss of the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, we hope. Face it, we are pretty much all that we have left. Remember, we couldn't do it without you, and you shouldn't do it without us. We're in this together, so thanks.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. One fun thing discovered over the break is, I don't remember how I did it last time, but we had to engineer it after a while to make sure that the break music and all the cues, the audio cues for when our break begins, are available to Greg over Zoom. I had them all rigged up so that Skype would do it, but I forget how I did that trick. And so, but Greg knows by now, you watch the clock, and in about 9:27 and 30 seconds, some music should start, and then around 9:28, we take out. We take off.
9:30 on the dot, we're back, and so that part works.
So, okay. This is working pretty well. I should start a department of government, whatever this is. It's not efficiency per se, but we'd be doing a better job, I'm sure.
Well, having us sign ourselves out and then get locked out of our communication mode is like totally efficient, isn't it?
That's true. Yeah. I mean, we're not doing
it's
any
so
worse.
Efficient that the show is like only
guys.
a minute.
Yeah.
Or even less because you couldn't get on.
Right. Now after the show, I'll send out an email. Skype, we want to rehire you. We fired you in error.
Right.
But only till May.
Yeah. So,
all right.
the next story I want to talk about, we're going to stick with international for a bit.
Sure, why not?
Here's a really intriguing story about why Canada, which currently hates us with the passion of 1,000 suns,
Yes.
why Canada should join the EU, says The Economist. Europe needs space and resources. Canada needs people. Let's deal.
Okay.
Now, this is not likely to happen, but here's an interesting thing. Well, yeah, since Canada and the U.S. are currently having a major spat, and Trump says he wants a divorce, Canada should start flirting with Europe. As international conflicts go, none did so little to disrupt the global order as the Whiskey Wars that pitted Canada against Denmark for 4 decades, which flared up in 1984. The unlikely spat involved a 1 square kilometer island in the middle of an icy Arctic channel marking the border between Greenland and the Canadian territory of Nunavut.
Yes. All right.
Both sides assumed the rock was theirs.
It's a rock. Of course it's
what
ours.
might have been a casus belli, a source of war, by lesser countries became for the northern duo an exercise in diplomatic civility. Canadian officials visiting the island marked their territory by leaving whiskey and flags. Danes asserted sovereignty by snaffling the booze and leaving their own schnapps.
Oh, okay.
In lieu of shots fired, polite letters were occasionally exchanged.
Shots drank.
Yeah. When the quarrel grew tiresome, a working group spent years agreeing to split the island down the middle, ending all hostilities in 2022. With enemies like these, who needs friends? As it turns out, both Europe and Canada may be in the market for upgraded alliances. Trump's return to the White House brings the prospect of tariffs and jingoistic bluster. Nerves are jangling. Places on the fringes of the European Union are rethinking their ties to the club. Switzerland has agreed to an alliance, and Iceland will hold a referendum in 2027 on joining. So a lot of interesting things happening, a lot of moving parts. Greenland, which left the EU in 1985 after gaining autonomy from Denmark, might consider rejoining. But Canada may have the most to fret about. Mr. Trump is goading his neighbor by suggesting it's about to become America's 51st state, which is nuts because you're going to add, 40 million Democratic voters?
Yeah, but only 1 state, so 2 senators.
Yeah, but that's still enough. And referring to its prime minister as Governor Justin Trudeau.
It isn't even him.
I think he's still pissed off that his wife made eyes at Trudeau one time when they got together.
Well, his problem is at home.
I think that's the entire basis of this whole spat. Officials from Ottawa and EU capitals have been trading notes on how to handle another bout of Trump. And Charlemagne, who enjoys both European and Canadian heritage, has a ready solution to both places' woes. The EU should invite Canada to become its 28th member. And I think Charlemagne may be the author of this piece.
I see.
Not the original Charlemagne. That was
He's dead. Yeah, well, very powerful figure.
So the not entirely straightforward case for Canada-EU, or Canada-EU, predates Mr. Trump. It's, in short, Canada is vast. It has natural resources, relatively few people.
So vast.
EU is small, cramped, and mineral poor. It's a perfect match.
Okay.
The way he sees, the way she looks, it's a perfect match. That's from Fiddler on the Roof. It's not meant to be sexist.
All right.
So, sure, EU rules reserve membership to European states, yet despite a residual attachment to the frontier spirit, Canadians can be thought of as honorary Europeans.
Yeah, in a way.
They still, respect the Queen. The country has endured 3 sets of colonists from the old continent, starting with a brief Viking incursion. And like Europeans, Canadians believe that markets work but must be tempered by welfare states. The governments offer similar deals to citizens, high taxes, messy politics, and good living standards for nearly all. Both trade openly, fret about global warming, dislike guns, the death penalty, and Russian aggression. But Europe has more to gain from a tie-up with Canada than access to Quebec's strategic maple syrup reserve. Europeans can be sold on enlargement by the prospect of their union tripling its surface area and adding only 40 million Canadians to a population of 440 million.
Okay.
So the EU would go from having a population density not so different from China to that which is not so different from America, assuming enough Greeks or Belgians volunteer to live in rather chilly conditions.
Well, they don't have to move there.
Yeah. I mean, this is only partly tongue-in-cheek, but it's sort of intriguing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you now have to consider it as a lot of, well, look, a lot of international cooperative alliances are, in fact, having, real-time discussions about reconfiguring themselves to include or exclude the United States as necessary.
Hey, you remember the old United Arab Republic?
Yes.
I mean, it was, Egypt and Syria? Not exactly contiguous.
Right.
You can do stuff. Europe is short of energy, too. Canada has lots of oil, gas, and hydropower.
Oh.
So that would help.
Yeah. I mean, it's not out of the question. It's a
France gets French speakers.
Yes, right, true.
Even France should be happy. France hates everything, but France should be happy with this.
Yeah. Well, France has a little known fact, I guess. I don't know. And I think everybody in the island understands it, but we don't because it's not us. But France holds territory there, like in what you would think was Canada. Some of those rocks in between the territories actually belong to France. And people live on them and everything. And they're just French. And not French-speaking Canadians, French. And,
right.
So they got a toehold there. Canada's, kind of European metric system,
right.
2 languages.
But the best reason of all for joining?
Oh,
maple syrup meet Belgian waffle.
Oh, true. Power Alliance.
Yeah,
I hadn't thought about that.
So I think it's a great idea.
Right. Like, what's the tariff on Belgian waffles to Canada now? Not, they could reduce it to 0 if they're in the EU.
More importantly, it's the maple syrup the other direction.
Yeah, I don't know. Do they use?
Right. Anybody can make waffles, but you can't.
I guess
just
that's
like
true.
make
Well,
maple syrup.
But you can't call them Belgian waffles unless
they
flour
come from a
is
certain
milled
part of France, right?
Right. Well, probably not France, but yeah, I don't know what the rules are on that. I think there are none because you see Belgian waffles built all over the place. They missed the boat on, claiming that. I think it was too late before they realized that the champagne people and the bourbon people had kind of cornered the market on that stuff.
Right.
All right. Do they use syrup on the waffles over there? I mean, I would put them on there, but I'm afraid that, Belgians would be like, I can't believe he is putting the disgusting American syrup on it. Yeah. No, it's Canadian. Oh, well, then it is
the first time I had Belgian waffles was at the 1964 World's Fair in New York, and they served them with ice cream.
That's a great way to have them.
It was a waffle with ice cream on top. Yeah. Absolutely delicious. It was the hit of the World's Fair.
What have the Americans done with that? They've put chicken on it. I don't really understand that, but
I mean, I was 10 years old, and I still remember it.
Yeah. Well, it's a hit. Who wouldn't want that? And, it's a great dessert. And then, I don't know, leave it to America to decide that. No, it's for breakfast. Well, it's really for, all right. That's fine. And then, I don't know how the chicken got there, but it was a good idea.
Don't tell me what to do. You guys have beignets for breakfast.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. So they won't be upset about that. All right. I knew that wasn't really going to be our news, but it's a real thing. The Canadians are frightened and worried and upset about it. Trump keeps saying it. Everybody keeps saying, no, don't take him literally, but take him seriously. You don't know what to make of this. It's insulting to them, the way he refers to them. And meanwhile, they're having to discuss joining the European Union. I mentioned yesterday, just sort of half tongue-in-cheek, that the Five Eyes intelligence sharing group was probably already working on considering cutting out the U.S. and just being Four Eyes, which is just what they used to call kids with glasses back in the days
just an insult.
Before we realized that bullying was such a problem. But so maybe they'll come up with a new idea. But I did see, granted it was the UK Daily Mail, which frequently lies about everything, said it. But I think you'll see that news story pop up in more reputable outlets pretty soon, that they are, in fact, talking about how to deal with intelligence sharing without including the United States, because it's just too dangerous to do now. You do not know where that intelligence is going to go. Well, you do know where that intelligence is going to go. You're just not supposed to say it. And the answer is Russia.
Right.
And that's bad.
So in a related but not completely understandable yet situation,
most of the show has not
the
been
U.S. has decided to turn back on information sharing with Ukraine.
Okay.
And might even start supplying them with arms again because Ukraine agreed to a 30-day truce pause that Russia apparently has already erected barriers to, rejected. And Russia said, no, you can't do that. That'll just let Ukraine rearm. We won't go for it.
Hell, you can't do that. That screws up all my plans.
So completely unclear as to what's going on, just like everything else Trump is doing is unclear, which is one of the reasons why the public is starting to reject what he's doing in that CNN poll. They're not particularly happy with his foreign relations dealings. Again, just about the only thing that they support is immigration, and that's only by 51-49.
Yeah, barely.
The point I'm trying to make here is Trump is not popular. He's never been popular. It's in the press's interest to claim he's popular. I remember when they used to do that for George W. Bush and would never get off the idea that he was popular even after he was way unpopular. Mm-hmm. And the polls reflect it. Trump is in negative territory only 2 months after he was elected. He's supposed to have a honeymoon. It's gone. Mm-hmm. And, this is all part and parcel of it. And then that brings us to the shutdown that may or may not happen, which probably won't happen.
Okay.
And Armando and Ben Yellen, another Twitter friend, were chatting with this morning. And here's the basic deal. Which party do you think the public thinks is stronger on crime as a general rule?
Well, the narrative has always been Republicans. I guess they're stronger on everything.
Let's call it narrative.
Sure. All right.
Right. Which is the narrative that says the party is stronger? Which party?
The party is stronger?
Yeah. Which has the
I guess
stronger
any
party?
Stronger anything, probably the narrative says Republicans, because they're strongly strong about strongness.
Which party wants shutdowns and which party doesn't?
Republicans. Usually the narrative is Republicans are at fault for shutdowns.
Exactly.
That is true.
And the facts don't matter.
It's true.
The facts never matter.
Okay.
It's
Although
narrative.
the fact that fact is still true. They keep doing it.
It happens that they keep doing it.
Yeah.
Point being that don't worry about the way it might look if Democrats vote no or not to help Republicans because it winds up being a shut. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If there's a shutdown, Republicans will get blamed. And now you could just say, look, the shutdown, any shutdown under any circumstances, the party in charge of Congress gets blamed. Mm-hmm. But it only happens when Republicans are the party in charge.
That's true, too.
So it's hard to separate which is more important. The fact that it's Republicans or the fact that the party in charge gets it doesn't make any difference. Republicans are the party in charge, and if there is a shutdown of any way, kind, shape, or form, Republicans will get blamed.
They should.
Now, who knows that?
I do.
The answer, you do, I do, Republicans do.
Right, and I'll share it with Europeans. I'll tell them.
I'll tell the Canadians. So I'll tell all Five Eyes. So the point there is that since everybody knows, that's in quotes, everybody knows
all right,
that Republicans are responsible for shutdowns,
right?
Republicans don't want a shutdown because they're afraid they'll be blamed.
Yes, some of them.
Now let's look at votes in Congress as to whether there's going to be an actual shutdown and who votes what. What I'm saying is, forget about the insider report about this one opposes it, that one said they'll never vote for it. That it's all garbage. Republicans are afraid of shutdowns, and anything in the House, like a continuing resolution, clean or not, and this one ain't clean, is going to pass because Republicans don't want a shutdown. Fast forward to the Senate, I'm not sure, but I'm telling you, Republicans don't want a shutdown.
Yes, that's true. The issue that still stands, I don't doubt that they're going to vote for it, and it was, I think, more or less unanimous among the Republicans. I don't think there might have been a Republican
Thomas
no
Massey
vote.
always votes no.
Yeah, he's weird, but I mean, I
So
mean,
there
he's
was one
weird by
Republican no
by their
vote, and as you
standards.
pointed out, there was one Democratic yes vote.
Yeah.
The usual one.
So a little bit of a wash there. But what that means is that all the usual suspects for last-minute holdouts, who very often flip at the last minute, didn't even bother this time. We didn't hear the last 5 days about how Chip Roy refuses, about how, what's the one that they don't know what planet she's on at any given moment. I forget her last name. It begins with an S. But she too, a yes vote. There was no... there were no features in the Hill
Sparks or somebody like that.
Yeah, right, exactly, something like that. And then, but usually this would have been a week-long epic in the Hill and Roll Call and Politico and the rest about how the House Freedom Caucus was struggling to bring its members into line, and it was easy. They didn't say a thing.
Yeah.
So there's that. On the flip side of that, though, this now goes to the Senate, and the Senate never likes being dictated to by the House. But the House has left the building, essentially. They left town, and so there will be at least a shutdown for a short amount of time unless the Senate swallows this thing. And the issue here is that it's so bad and so far from clean and so annoying to Democrats that that Republicans would pretend it was clean and have the press believe them. And it gives away the game in the sense that it continues the appropriations through until the end of the fiscal year. And everybody kind of has already seen that the Trump administration has no intention of honoring the letter of the law. Democrats wanted to do short-term CRs because it would give them leverage every once in a while to say, hey, all we asked was that the law be followed, and it's just not happening. We can't be party to this. This will, take that off the table for the rest of the year, and then there'll be no leverage except to throw your hands up in disgust and say, this is outrageous and unconstitutional. So I don't know whether they get all the Democrats or besides now, John Fetterman says, I don't care. I'm going to vote yes because I'm afraid that will be blamed for the shutdown, even though you just explained that never happens. But he may have forgotten he's a Democrat temporarily, and maybe that's why he's worried about being blamed for it. But I don't know that they can get the requisite number of Democrats to go along.
Well, maybe they can, maybe they can't. We don't know.
We'll see.
Bit of drama, I suppose, but in the end, the government won't shut down probably.
You think? All right. Yeah, I'm not as sure. But, there are categories of shutdowns.
Well, I'm sure the House wasn't going to do it because Republicans hate it. Yeah. Republicans hate it in the Senate, but apparently you need 60 votes.
Yeah. This is a
Why?
CR.
Why do you need 60 votes?
It's a CR, you can filibuster a CR.
Okay, that's why.
You can't do it with a budget resolution. That's coming later.
Okay.
But
so since you can filibuster, you need 60 votes, and that's why Fetterman has to be joined by others.
Yeah. So,
Chuck
they
Schumer
might
and
be.
Who else? Because Schumer will also be afraid. So,
I know.
Who else do you get?
True. I don't know. Once you break that wall down, if you get, you could be anybody.
Anybody.
It's a very bad idea from the standpoint of, it's been, I think, discussed on social media pretty widely. Again, you're agreeing to, one, something that's not a clean CR, and they've been lying about that the whole time. That should bother you. Two, the substance of the cuts and of the additional spending in defense, et cetera, should bother you. Also, there's this question of, well, this bill contains lots of spending and funding for departments that the Trump administration alleges are closed or have been eliminated, or that half the staff have been laid off. What happens to all that money that's being appropriated for a fully staffed Department of Education in this bill when there's only half the staff there? What are we doing about that? And
well, reportedly,
Republicans
snuck in something else, which is smelly and non-clean.
Yeah.
And that is that
That's
the
right.
Congress is not allowed to vote against tariffs or anything else Trump does for the rest of the year.
Yeah, so he'll have unilateral power, granting him unilateral power on tariffs, which changes every 5 minutes. I mean, you don't. It's just like, please shoot us in both feet. No stability to this system whatsoever. Subject to his whims. He's subject to whatever Elon feels like doing that day.
Right. So it's absolutely not a clean bill.
No.
And
it's
I'll
very
tell you
dangerous
who
to
is
accept it for the rest of the year.
yes. So they should reject it. I just don't have any confidence they will.
Well, yeah, there is that. But I'll remind them also that, if they come back and they reject this thing, it's not game over forever. Like, the government doesn't shut down until September. The government shuts down, and you know what happens next week? The House comes back.
Yes,
and you
guess
have a
what?
shutdown for 5
Republicans
days.
don't want to be blamed for a shutdown, so
make
the
them come
shutdown
back.
will end.
Yeah, it'll go on for a couple of days. This happens from time to time. It's not disastrous. It's not never a great time to shut down the government, and it will be all of the government because there's no appropriations bills in place. But with teenagers turning pieces of it on and off at random anyway, and the president promising, I'm not going to accept the budget and the appropriations you're handing me. I'm going to turn parts of that on and off at random too. Shut the place down for 5 days. The Republicans will come back just as scared as they were this week and pass a better one next week that's not so disastrous. And that should do it. They'll send a different version back to the Senate. In other words, the senators who are dismayed and worried about shutting the government down, but dismayed about the structure of this CR and finding it unacceptable, you'll have another one in front of you next week if you vote no now. I don't know if they're hearing me, and that's just because of Skype issues.
Well,
ordinarily,
so there you have it.
Yeah,
it's not a surprise that Republicans managed somehow, with only their very slim majority, to coalesce behind passing something, because Republicans are afraid that this is one of those situations where they actually might have to take responsibility for what they do. The Senate's a different story. And so Republicans don't have 60 votes, and therefore can't do it on Republicans alone. So now you have to involve Democrats. And Senate Democrats, for whatever reason, still feel responsible for running the country, even though they're in the minority.
Yes. Now, somebody in the House had a good comment, and I don't know whether I'll be able to dig it up or not, but one of the House members who said, well, we know what the dilemma is and we know what the risks are, but we voted the correct way. There's almost, except for the one, there's no Democratic support for this thing. And he said, now those of us who have 2-year terms have taken the courageous vote here. Let's see how they do over there in the place with 6-year terms.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we
don't know because
4 more years to absorb this hit. And there won't be a hit either.
There won't be a hit because Republicans will be blamed. That's the bottom line.
Right. So yeah, I understand. I understand that the play is normally you don't want to shut down, and there's an opportunity to avoid it. That's true. But yeah, what the reporters are neglecting to tell anybody is if they don't take this opportunity to avoid it, what's going to happen? Government will shut down, but not forever, because the House will come back and take another shot at it. And it's inconvenient and bad, and you don't want there to be a shutdown, but it's not your fault. And 2, if you don't want there to be a shutdown, guess what's going to happen? People are going to come back and work to not have one. That works to your advantage. Go ahead and use it. They're not gone forever, the House. It could be. I mean, it might as well be. But
it might as well be.
If the government shuts down and they're afraid of shutdowns, they'll come back to open it up.
And there you have it.
All right. Yeah.
All right. Now, and one last thing before the end of the show, and that is that...
Oh, my God. What button do I press? Yes.
So what happens after I leave?
I don't know. It'll make a funny noise, I guess, when you exit.
But a funny different noise. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot what the noise was. This one had an interesting noise.
Yeah.
And eventually I think I can find a place to shut that noise off, or at least on the output side.
Well, you never shut it on the Skype end.
No, everybody got used to it and they liked it.
Right. So, maybe you can make my washing machine noise.
Yeah, I probably can do that. Anyway, I don't know, when the hour comes to an end, I'm gonna have to press some more buttons. Echo might come back. I don't know, and then I'll read some other stories.
And we'll
try it all again tomorrow.
We'll figure out what we're going to do tomorrow,
just like
depending
the House
upon
of
whether or not you
Representatives.
can re-sign on to Skype by tomorrow morning.
I wonder what
Otherwise,
my
we can
password
do
is.
Zoom, and that'll work. So the last story
Yes.
is that there are some new Canadian polls out for Canada's election.
Sorry, eh?
We mentioned the other
Sorry.
day, Canada has
Boo.
a new prime minister for the moment, but they're going
Right.
to have elections. And two polls in Canada have just been released. Leger has it basically tied, and then there's one called EKOS, E-K-O-S.
Oh. What is
And that has Liberals at 48%, which is up 7 points from the last poll. Conservatives at 31, down 4 points.
Well.
And then all the other parties. So what's happening is that Justin Trudeau's party is benefiting politically from being mad at the United States and being mad at Trump. So
Yes. Right. Yes, I understand. The analysis there is, Trudeau steps down, and they thought, okay, well, maybe that's responsible for some rebound in the Liberal numbers. But yeah, I think the larger consensus is, or the larger part of that number is, this is the party that is standing up to Trump. The Conservative Party, some of their members too, not really appreciative of Trump and his plans at all. I mean, it's very difficult to be, against Canadian sovereignty at all. And as a conservative, that's almost impossible. But yeah, both. So the change in leadership helped them a little bit. And then, Trump, Trudeau probably thinking, if I had stuck around, I probably could have actually recovered. But, very modestly stepping aside. And of course, who wants this headache?
Yes. Leaders who stay beyond their time to stay always think that I should have stayed and not stepped down because I could have won.
Yeah.
They always think that it's
two different things.
Rarely true.
Could have, maybe. Should have, clearly not. You're doing great.
Yeah.
Is he still in Parliament?
Who?
Does he remain?
Trudeau? I don't know what happens to him.
That's a good question.
I guess he's still there until the next election, but the new guy is going to declare a election fairly soon. So
yeah, well, he's good at declaring things. All right, our music is running. I'll just tell you that because you need to know. But you're watching the clock as it is. So we'll try this again tomorrow, whereupon there will be news.
Yes.
And maybe musical accompaniment.
Since we're moving there anyway, I'd like to do Zoom tomorrow if we could.
All right. Well, I'll work on the engineering. Okay.
Yeah, and we'll work out the bugs because we have to anyway.
All right. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. And I don't know what the hell's going on here. All right. The host has ended this meeting. It doesn't. You know what? It doesn't appear to make a sound as Greg departs. Who's interested in hearing what noise might it make? It had its own very interesting and intriguing ringtone, which hopefully before we get used to it as a telltale sign of the progress of the show, I can find a way to mute that on the input side to my soundboard here, and then I don't know. Then we never get used to it. I don't want to do their branding work for them for free. They should be paying me. All the Skype people should have been paying us to use their ringy-dingy noise the whole time. All right. And we'll give it a try again tomorrow via Skype. And I think I've got the audio quality issue worked out a little bit. I found one button that I could press. Now, I have to try to remember how I engineered it so that the musical cue will go through for Greg. But otherwise, I wouldn't say it was a smooth transition. But if the problems only last one day, in hindsight, we'll regard this as having been a smooth transition. Chaotic at the moment of transfer, but from a geological perspective, we go immediately to that. Even a human historical perspective. I think we'll find the whole thing. Why one day we'll laugh about all of this. And we laughed a little bit about it today, but it was nervous laughter. Later it will be more confident laughter. Anyway, what else has happened? in the last day or so that is important. I did mention that the prolific liars over at the Daily Mail made a point of noting in their headline that Britain, which is where they're based, is urged to form a breakaway Four Eyes alliance without the U.S. after Trump's unprecedented decision to block intelligence sharing with Ukraine. Now, Greg also mentioned that Trump later reversed his decision, at least temporarily, and said, no, let's start doing some more intelligence sharing and resume arms supplies to Ukraine because reasons, and there were some reasons given. Although I also suspect that some of the reasoning may be the Russians getting word to Trump through the grapevine. We prefer that relationship remain undisturbed for the moment because it's our intention at some point to plant fake intelligence with you and have you pass that on to the Ukrainians. And I don't know whether that'll be with our knowledge or without our knowledge. You could probably make it work either way. If they're smart, they would do it without our knowledge so that Trump doesn't do something dumb like he wouldn't intentionally blab it to the Ukrainians and give it away, but he might, he's the kind of guy who would say something dumb like, well, our intelligence sharing, as you know, has been, I've granted personally the allowing the sharing of intelligence with the Ukrainians as long as they use it responsibly. It will be fine. And let me just say that we have ways of knowing whether they're using it responsibly or not. And that'll be like the tip-off. Oh, so they're going to plant fake intelligence with us and see if we bite on it. And if that's the case, then the Russian, all right, great. So he'll do something dumb and give it away. So if they're smart, the Russians, if they're planning on doing that, wouldn't tell Trump about it. So, I have my doubts about that. And then, of course, there's always the possibility of, all right, and here's what we want you to do. Turn the arms sales to Ukraine back on, but send them things that were rejected at quality control at the manufacturer, or forget to put the explosive warhead in things, or use this, sell them drones with this kind of GPS guidance, except it actually has a backdoor that we can use to control it via Starlink and turn it around and send it back to Kiev and blow that up. Although they would say Kiev and blow that up. So I don't know. I got my doubts about what the value of having the assistance turned back on is. But as we said, the prolific liars at the Daily Mail say that Britain is being urged to, lead a reconfigured intelligence sharing alliance, something along the lines of calling it Four Eyes instead of five. Britain must develop a Four Eyes intelligence sharing alliance in response to Trump's actions over Ukraine, defense sources have said. Now, I don't know whether that's actually defense sources or not because they spelled defense funny over there. So we'll see. But we can't just hold the spelling against them. But they spell it like fence. Fences make good neighbors. Defencing makes, I guess, probably for bad neighbors. Anyway, the U.S. President's unprecedented decision to block allies, including the UK, from giving Ukraine U.S.-generated classified material that could benefit the Eastern European country has sparked calls for a breakaway group. Mr. Trump used his powers as part of the Five Eyes alliance of the U.S., Britain, Australia, in case you didn't know what the eyes were, Canada, and New Zealand to suspend intelligence to Kyiv. Now, I guess we should anticipate that Trump will start calling it Four Eyes anyway, because Canada doesn't qualify as an independent eye anymore. It's part of the United States, and so now the Four Eyes intelligence is the U.S., Britain, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And then probably shortly after that, Trump will say, Three Eyes. It's the U.S., Britain, Kangaroo Land, and that's it, because it's three. I wanted to get it back down to 4. So, all right, from 4. Maybe. And then, what the hell? Maybe it'll be more natural. 2 eyes, like a person. Is it English speakers and kangaroo people who also speak English? It doesn't make any sense, but, none of what he does. Anyway, some in the defense establishment are now suggesting forming a subgroup to allow intelligence sharing without a U.S. veto. It isn't about pulling out of 5 eyes. That's an interesting point. It's about creating a new 4 eyes within it. That is to say, without America, the source said. And yesterday we hinted at this when we were reading, the G7 is getting together, and they wanted to have an initiative about doing something about the Russian shadow tanker fleet, and the U.S. vetoed it. So I'm sure that we were having discussions there about, well, is there a way we can get together as a G6 and, handle things that way? We threw Russia out of the G8 and worked fine as a G7. Everyone accepted the G7. Although now I'm worried that this will be a little bit something like picking up the hitchhiker in the Something About Mary scene. G6? You can't do G6. Oh, it's G7. Well, it used to be G8. Yeah, until we, realized that was stupid. It pared it down to G7. But G6, you can't have just G and any number. You can. Why not? Remember, there's the G20 out there, right? And the G20 has, the leadership group of was G8. That is G7. It can be G6. It can be G5. I guess G0 is where you begin to run into trouble. But, okay. The U.S.'s decision anyway, this lying newspaper's story goes on to say, would damage Ukraine's ability to defend itself against ongoing Russian attacks. That's no lie. But that's only because it was a quote from the Institute for the Study of War. And they said it last week. So, I don't know. It doesn't make any difference when they said it, I guess. But, look, if you're studying war, that's on topic, right? Former British ambassador to Washington, Sir David Manning, he's a sir, said the question of intelligence sharing was going to be more difficult to approach. I just had a terrible thought about this. No, it's not terrible. It's just interesting. But it's going to just create controversy for no good reason. But has there been a transgender peerage yet in the UK? In other words, someone who's awarded a knighthood, I guess is the right word. It's not peerage per se, but it can come with a peerage. But anyway, a knighthood granted to some, or vice versa, right? To someone who's identifies as male at the time, I guess this stuff happens late enough in life that generally speaking, the person is settled in their gender role, but you never know, right? And they later decide they identify as non-gendered, or that would really be something, or the opposite gender. Can they, whose permission do they need to start saying they're, Dame Dana Manning? Is that how it would be? Is that the opposite, right? I don't know. I'm not up to speed on my knighthood. And what is it? What do you get? What do they grant to the women? Is it knighthood? Is it something else? It's different, isn't it? I don't know. So, look, we didn't need these problems. I was just talking about intelligence sharing, but that's a good question. British listeners or Anglophiles who have an answer to that, you're welcome to email us. I wouldn't try it in the middle of the show. Well, go ahead, try it in the middle of the show, but also email it because I have 7,000 windows open and I'm never going to get the answer. Anyway, it's not a problem, I don't think. For the rest of us, what would be the answer to this? It's not a lay issue. Us commoners could call you whatever you want, I guess. But will the king take umbrage unless he's consulted in the switch? And is there any paperwork that's necessary? I'm fascinated by the logistics of this. Anyway, so look, this is going on allegedly in the UK. I have no reason to doubt this, except the fact that I'm reading it from the Daily Mail. And that is good reason to doubt it, but it seems like they have some sources on this one, and this should be happening. I just wanted to point it out. But I do have to point out, the source is not a great one. Other news. All right, I had some correspondence via Daily Kos email in which Daily Kos, let me find the email so I can go along with it here. It's the Daily Kos user LibWomanNYC. Now that could be anybody, but in this case, it's a term adopted by one person as a screen name, so we know exactly who it is. But we're protecting everybody's real life identities by not giving them. The LibWomanNYC wrote to say hello, among other things, from the front lines of the destruction of Columbia University. That is to say, NYC. And Columbia University, of course, right in the center of the controversy, as it has been for quite some time, and they've found no way to dig out of it. That's one of those things about digging when you're in a hole, but has sent two articles here. The first one, as you know, it's very scary, so have some soothing pucka tea ready. And as a matter of fact, I had all plans for having that tea ready, but they were blown up by our Skype Zoom meltdown, in part. But anyway, a scary article from the Washington Examiner, which is a scary and less than reputable publication here in D.C. area. A comprehensive guide to overhauling higher education, a publication of the AEI, American Enterprise Institute, which is a place with some very mixed record, but is generally speaking, fairly hardline conservative think tank, but still employs, for some strange reason, people who have had some political awakening over the years and who weren't always hardcore conservative Republicans. Anyway, Norm Ornstein, for instance, I think still affiliated with AEI. So the very mixed record. I would say they're the Atlantic magazine of conservative think tanks. Every once in a while they go back to their roots, but there's also some heterodox thought prominently featured there and paid for. This one, though, back to the roots and is very weird and frightening. Oh, and again here, I guess it was published in the Washington Examiner, but it's hosted here on the AEI website. I guess maybe under the author's, permanent storehouse of publications. But what it appears to be is a game plan for, as they say, a comprehensive guide to overhauling higher education. Anodyne in the titling, right? Like, unless you look at the substance of it and maybe who wrote it and where it's being published, you wouldn't necessarily know that it's really a comprehensive guide to destroying higher education. And yeah, what's so worrisome about that is that a lot of this is coming to pass today in particular, whereas the building of the headquarters building of the Department of Education is closed while they're firing everybody. And then along with it, something from Inside Higher Education, Inside Higher Ed, which is a publication, well, first of all, more aligned with like actually conducting education and preserving its ability to, benefit humanity, in which they are essentially describing what's going on in terms of, hey, look, this has been the plan for a long time. Now, you've seen what's been going on in the last couple of days at Columbia. And I guess, going back, reminding ourselves of all the things that have happened along the way, the student protests, how the administration dealt with the student protests, how Republicans dealt with the administrations dealing with the student protest. That is to say, administration at first, tolerating it, but not being particularly happy about it. Then trying to rein in the activity as at least claims were made that Jewish students at Columbia were everything from made to feel uncomfortable, which is not something that you can really do much about. 2, actually experienced harassment and discrimination and felt that they were in imminent danger whenever they were in proximity to the protest. And then, of course, if you don't put yourself in the proximity of the protest, the question is, will it follow you around campus? And the claims were that it did. And I don't doubt that that's a possibility. But then, of course, it became politicized on both sides, and everybody took an interest in putting themselves in the best possible light and the other people in the worst possible light. Things escalated, and then, of course, Republicans got wind of it and started to say, well, whatever's going on here, we should be targeting the liberal elites who run the place and trying to drive them from office with anything that we have at our disposal, including, as Chris Rufo later discovered, if we just accuse the leadership there of plagiarism, that's a big no-no in academia, and we can push them out that way, even if we can't push them out based entirely on what's actually going on the ground there. And they succeeded in doing so. So anyway, as it turns out, this has long been in the works, and LibWoman NYC says you should read these 2 things and see what's going on. So, right. So now, of course, we have the administration of Columbia University, I guess, agreeing to and facilitating the arrest of Palestinian protest leaders there, something we mentioned on Monday and should be keeping an eye on. And it seems like they're jumping out of the way, trying to find ways to stay alive. But at the same time, the Trump administration is canceling federal grants that underwrote important research there at Columbia University, and is doing that elsewhere as well as a mechanism of punishing universities that don't comply with the wishes of the weirdest weirdos of the Trump administration. And so the upshot has been, well, even if you comply with the wishes, with their political wishes, they're still going to punish you nonetheless. And the reason for it, I guess, is partially explained in this Washington Examiner article hosted over at the AEI website by Max Eden, entitled A Comprehensive Guide to Overhauling Higher Education, an op-ed published in late last year, December 6th, 2024. And it goes like this. 5 years ago, President Donald Trump's education secretary, Betsy DeVos, remember when she was the worst education secretary in history? She's been surpassed. Stood all but alone against the Democratic drive, capital D, Democratic drive for student loan forgiveness. The conventional wisdom at the time was that the free college for all was a surefire winning issue for the Democrats. Why wouldn't Trump's education secretary simply allow a polite, quiet surrender? How the times have changed. America has spent the past 4 years under an administration that governed according to university-created woke ideology. You can see where this is going now, right? In the past year alone, college presidents kowtowed to pro-genocidal campus quad glampers. It's not a sympathetic look at the protest. You see. Okay, just want you to know. All of this has totally flipped Republicans, and so many people in general, against our universities. No one is wondering whether Trump's new education secretary nominee, Linda McMahon, will politely and quietly surrender to the college cartel. Everyone instead is wondering how the former World Wrestling Entertainment executive, and really, I mean, that's a huge indictment of the whole scheme right there. Right? Why is the Secretary of Education from pro wrestling? Yeah, fake wrestling. Sure. All right, I know some of you don't think it's fake, or you understand that it's fake and you like it anyway. But anyway, no one thinks that the World Wrestling Entertainment executive is going to give up. Instead, they will give them the body slam they deserve. There are so many moves that McMahon could pull to rein in America's universities, and here are just a few. And the thing is, they're happening, as you'll see. 1, cutting off federal funding. First, let's start with what Congress could do to higher education finance. Trump vowed on the campaign trail to raise taxes on Ivy League university endowments. It wasn't until the very end that he started doing that, but I don't even remember whether he actually did it on the campaign trail or it was in the transition. I wouldn't doubt that he might fudge that. If you or I were lucky enough to make $500,000 a year, and I have a feeling that he actually found a way to make $500,000 a year, but okay, maybe not from AEI. We'd pay a federal tax rate of 37%. Yet universities are pulling in hundreds of millions of dollars a year from their multi-billion-dollar endowments, and they pay 1.4% tax. Universities should pay their fair share, the same share everyone else pays, which is an amazing thing for an AEI senior fellow to be saying about anything or anyone. You know, there are lots of wealthy individuals, and let me just pause for a second here to say how kind of astoundingly dumb, except we know what they're trying to do here, this really is. Well, you know, it's not fair. Individuals who make $500,000 a year pay 37%. And then these other things that are not individuals, that are not even people, and that hold and collect money in very different ways and hold that money for very different purposes, are paying a totally different tax rate. Well, yeah, they're very different things. But okay, let's say that you think, oh, well, look, they're an entity. And all entities should pay 37% if they have income of more than $500,000 a year. Well, then how do you explain all the actual people-style entities, including the one that's running the effing government right now, not paying anything close to 37%? That doesn't perturb him somehow. That doesn't enter into the picture. Well, I'm focusing on education. Yeah, but you're mixing your metaphors. You're comparing apples and oranges here. Person versus university. Well, how about person to person? Don't confuse me with apples. I want to talk about pomegranates. All right? I mean, not all right. You're disqualified. You said clip instead of magazine. You're out, as far as I'm concerned. But all right. Just to keep scaring you, we'll continue on. Similarly, universities get an insanely cushy deal on research grants from the federal government. Research grants tend to cover both the direct costs of the research project and, quote, indirect costs. And I have there's a great explainer out there about what indirect costs are. But suffice to say, Republicans are like, well, they're just throwing everything in under indirect costs and then billing the government for it. And, you know, from the university side, it's like, well, you can't just, if you give us a $50,000 grant to study something, right, and we study it, and then we need paper to print it on, but we spent the $50,000 on researchers and some test tubes. Now we're out of paper. If we buy paper to print the thing to give you the results, can we bill you for the paper? Sure. Now, are there people who are abusing it? Sure. Could you take a Department of Government Efficiency and ask that they not do that? Sure. But that's not the way they're handling it. Anyway, so, right, they get a cushy deal, as they say here, when they're trying to make an indictment, because they can get both direct project and indirect costs, which are supposed to cover overhead expenses, but are actually, they think, used as a slush fund for DEI. And who knows what else. But, you know, are they being used for DEI? I don't know. You don't know. He doesn't know. But he knows that you don't know. And if you're the kind of person who's going to be frightened by saying DEI is happening, then they'll say it for the purposes of putting you on their side. Anyway, Congress used to cap this slush fund share at 8%. Billionaire foundations tend to cap them at 15%. As the Heritage Foundation's Jay Green has documented right now, for every dollar colleges can get for research, they get about another 60 cents for a slush fund account. How much does the Heritage Foundation get? I don't know, and it's not discussed. The taxpayer shouldn't get a worse deal on research grants than the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Capping overhead costs at 15% would save billions a year. I mean, again, is it a savings? I don't know. On the books, it's a savings. Are you getting what you pay for? Couldn't tell you. The most interesting actions, though, wouldn't require Congress to scare universities straight. Is that a thing that we need to do? That's what they're going to try to do. To scare universities straight, McMahon should start by taking a prize scalp. She should simply This is what it says. This is honest to God. This is the quote. She should simply destroy Columbia University. And this is not one of those, click here on my video to see or absolutely destroy Columbia University. They mean actually take a university that's been up and running and one of the gems of the private education system anyway in this country and make it impossible for it to function. It's been open for, I don't know, how old is Columbia? Like 300 years, predates independence, and just close it. Why? Somebody protested something, and now I feel the sads. That's it. They'll blame everything else that's, troublesome about the university system, I suppose. All on Columbia. So Columbia is supposed to be the prize scalp here, which is what makes it so ridiculous and so very Chris Rufo-like. They declare in early December that we're just going to come up with something, pardon me, and use it to destroy Columbia University for no particular reason, just to show that we can do this thing. Now, they get around to trying to justify it next. Columbia was perhaps the worst offender in indulging the pro-Hamas campus radicals. You see where it comes from. Garbage. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I hope everything's still working correctly. No complaints so far, except for the fact that we're reading an AEI Senior Fellow Weirdos breakdown of how to destroy Columbia University for no other reason than to flex, I guess, for the Trump administration. So here's why they think they want to destroy Columbia, why they picked Columbia to destroy, I guess. As we said, this will explain everything about their perspective. Columbia was perhaps the worst offender in indulging the pro-Hamas campus radicals. Far cry, of course, well, I don't think we have to explain to any of you from, well, I don't think Palestinians should be murdered en masse willy-nilly with no repercussions whatsoever, or to be killed gleefully along the way. Right. Oh, well, that's pro-Hamas. It's pro-humanitarian, really. I have no doubt that there probably are Palestinian students who are studying in the U.S. who, I don't know. I mean, I guess eventually. I mean, if you need to find one in order to establish that there is such a thing as pro-Hamas Palestinian students, yes, I'm sure there's many. I'm sure the vast majority are not interested in aligning politically with Hamas. But then again, one, of course, like I said, that may be true. But even if it is, are they conducting terrorist attacks on campus or anywhere else? No, they're not. So I don't really know what to make of saying somebody is pro-Hamas. But two, it's probably not even true. But at the same time, it's probably worth noting that a lot of the people leveling the charge, you're pro-Hamas, are in fact also pro-Russia themselves, and maybe have a little bit of cleanup to do on the home front But no point in accusing them of hypocrisy. They won't feel it. Anyway, that's not what we're here to do. We're talking about education. And so that's their big accusation. Oh, yeah, well, if you protest against killing all the Palestinians in Gaza for whatever reason, and whatever you want to call it, that makes you pro-Hamas, as opposed to, I'm against wholesale murder. You know what? A lot of us are. Anyway, the Education Department's Office for Civil Rights, which is probably closed now anyway, should initiate a compliance review of every single decision Columbia made. Now, this is an interesting point, only for this purpose. At the same time, I meant to point this out yesterday as we were saying, yeah, they're getting ready to basically close the Department of Education tomorrow. So on the one hand, we're closing the Department of Education, the whole damn thing. We're going to eliminate it. Okay, well, we're going to fire half. Okay, well, we're definitely closing the Office of Civil Rights because we're against civil rights. So we're going to be closing that. And at the same time, you know, you have these guys, and Chris Rufos of the world, and this guy, Max, what's his name, Eden, saying, wait. I just laid out this brilliant program where I was going to have the Office of Civil Rights initiating a compliance review of every single decision Columbia made, whatever that even means. So we got to have them open to conduct that investigation. And I'm not sure how they're faring against the dodgy boys. Now, you said close it, I closed it. They're not, but I need the investigation. Have somebody else do it. Or have the half of the staff that's still there do it, I guess. It's just interesting that at the one time, well, we want to close it because smaller government. But at the same time, the parts of it that we want to leave open, we want to be so overwhelmingly intrusive in private education realm that, you know, whatever. We're going to nationalize Columbia University and scrutinize it top to bottom with employees that don't exist anymore. Anyway, that's a suggestion. Review every single decision Columbia made. Now, to do that, first of all, who cares? And it's not even in your jurisdiction. What happened to the private thing? And, you know, they're giving out vouchers to every private school, every place, because, well, the free market will determine what they offer by way of education. Okay, well, why is that? Because it's private, not public. I see. Okay, what about Columbia University? That's private, not public. Shut up. What are you, a communist? You pro-Hamas now? Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, how would they do it? To do that, the Office of Civil Rights, OCR, not optical character recognition, OCR, but Office of Civil Rights, OCR, would need the identities of every single foreign student who supported the protests. It's just no small thing. Well, to do that, the United States government would have to force Columbia University to accede to its violations of the First Amendment. I mean, right off the bat. We're going to use the power of the federal government to force this private entity to give us the identities of everybody who expressed a free thought, but one that, you know, we think was yucky. Give us all the names of all those. That's all that's necessary. To do that, all we have to do is throw out the First Amendment. You need the identities of every foreign student who supported the protests. Actions the Trump administration could deem material support of a terrorist organization, because as you remember, we said if you were in a protest, you were pro-Hamas. We say Hamas is a terrorist organization. It is. And that if you are in alignment with a terrorist organization, then obviously you're a terrorist. Now, if the alignment is over, we prefer steak and shake fries fried in beef tallow, that's supposedly a now pro-MAGA stance. But if Hamas also prefers that, then you might also be a terrorist. And really the way we would figure that out is if you're white Republican, you just like good fries. If you're brown or a Democrat or both or from another country, then that's the terrorism fries. We like the freedom fries for us, terrorism fries for you, and that's the way it works. How does it work that way? We suspended the Constitution. Didn't you hear me the first part where I said the First Amendment has to be trashed in order to make this work? So there you go. Now, the Trump administration could deem this your expression of support for Palestinians' right to not be bombed to death, no matter who they are or where they live, is now terrorism. Border czar Tom Homan could then revoke every single one of the foreign protesting students' visas. And if they don't have visas and they're in fact green card holders, well, then you wake up Marco Rubio and say, we need you to use the special provision of law that we mentioned the other day that says, yes, a green card can be revoked by personal action, personal approval of the Secretary of State if the Secretary of State is willing to go on the record and deem you to be your presence in the country and your green card status a danger to the national interests of the United States. I mean, what constitutes that? I don't know. Sign here. That's all that's necessary. And this is all great, fantastic, wonderful outgrowths of the George W. Bush expansion of the imperial presidency and the unitary executive. And yes, that leopard also ate the face of Liz Cheney along the way, even though she supported these things and these ideas that, well, we'll leave it up to the president and the Secretary of State because we'll never have crazy assholes serving in all of these positions, right? So let's just give this power away. And you know, right. I mean, does it not sound familiar to you? Maybe it doesn't because they're using slightly different terminology. What if the president deems going to a protest or saying, I'm not particularly troubled by that protest as material support for terrorist organization? The terminology's changed just slightly, but back in the George W. Bush days and when we were saying, this sounds like a bad idea, the issue was, who is an enemy combatant? Well, it's whoever the president says is an enemy combatant. That's the only way we can do it because we can't define it any better than that. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves tied up in court all the time and losing. So instead, we're going to leave the president the power to determine that. And don't worry, the president's not crazy. He's George W. Bush. Well, it was a bad idea then. And it was a bad idea to carry it on over, and that was something that warned Obama about. Well, I'm not a crazy asshole. Well, I agree with that. The problem is you're not going to be president forever, and the next Republican president likely will be a crazy asshole. And lo, he was. And you've left that power in his hands. George W. Bush had some constraint, but not that much, because we learned pretty quickly, well, maybe Quaker peace activists are terrorists or enemy combatants, and maybe they should be in Guantanamo. They never made it all the way to Guantanamo, thankfully. There was some restraint. But this administration is already thinking about that, although then they did a test run, by the way, some story we didn't catch up with, did a test run by saying everybody we want to deport, we'll send them to Guantanamo. Maybe not everybody, but some subsection of the people we want to deport, either for reasons or not for reasons, or we don't know what to do with them yet, or their countries won't take them back, or it's just a demonstration program. We want to show that we can put you in Guantanamo because that'll put the fear of God in you. They moved some people to Guantanamo, and then they realized this sucks. It's stupid. It's expensive. Nothing different is happening here. We don't know where to put the people anyway. We're going to end up feeding them in Guantanamo or eventually liquidating them in Guantanamo, and that's going to look bad too. And the Cubans will definitely report us. So I don't know how we're going to keep the Cubans quiet about this. Apparently, somewhere along the line, we suspended sending people to Guantanamo and said, this is dumb and it costs too much money and it doesn't do anything. And I'm tired of it already. I'm bored by it, says President Trump. So that program kind of over. Anyway, but that's the parallel back to the George W. Bush days. If you leave this power in the hands of the president, it will be temporarily quiet on that front while Democrats are president. When Republicans become president, it will get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And it's very hard to imagine it being worse in 2009 than George W. Bush ever was. But we're talking about Republicans. And, Obama is president. He's probably going to do a great job. 8 years of Obama. Maybe, if we're lucky, he's succeeded immediately by Joe Biden, but that was not to be the case. But 8 to 10 years, you're thinking ahead of time, who's dumber and more autocratic than George W. Bush, who has a real shot at the White House? And we didn't know at the time. Right? We're running around saying, I don't know, I guess it might be Jeb Bush, but I don't see any reason why he's going to be more autocratic than George. Who else were we imagining as president at the time? I don't even remember who was running. There was a lot of them, but Donald Trump wasn't one of them. And we weren't thinking about that guy. All right. Anyway, back to the article. Otherwise, we're never going to get through this. If Columbia doesn't cooperate, McMahon could cut off its research grant funding. Yeah, they could. Now, I have news for you. If Columbia does cooperate, McMahon could cut off its grant funding. And lo, that is what happened. I just love lo. We're going to say that a lot. If they do cooperate, which they mostly did, she'll surely find the evidence necessary to cut off its Title IV funding. So why cooperate? That would mean that Columbia would become ineligible to receive federal research grants and subsidized student loans, which would jeopardize nearly half of its revenue. This isn't about getting them to do better as a university. This is getting them to close down as a university. Next up, removing foreign money from higher education. And why should they? It's private, but okay. Speaking of foreign influence, McMahon could also pick up where DeVos left off, and that's his interesting phrasing too, because referring back to what I was saying about warning Obama about this in 2009, that was the actual language that I used when I got one chance in life to speak directly to a president of the United States and said, that what's going to happen here if you don't reverse this stuff is the next Republican president after you, whether that's immediately after you or not, will pick up right where Bush left off. And they're not going to head in a better direction. Anyway, so the same information or same phrasing is used here. McMahon could pick up where DeVos left off in scouring the finances of Columbia University for every single cent of unreported foreign donations. Well, what do they have to report exactly? It's a private educational institution gets money from a foreign source. So what? I don't think they have reporting requirements about it, do they? Anyway, and then he says, levy the maximum penalty for every dollar on the university. What penalty is there? I don't understand. Is there a rule even of any kind, much less a law that says a British benefactor, who maybe somebody who's an alum of Columbia University, gives money to the university? There's a problem about that? I don't know. I'm not aware of what it is. Maybe someone in education has some idea, or they're just saying foreign, and therefore, when it's you guys getting it, it's bad. And while the Trump administration is looking into Columbia, the Justice Department should thoroughly explore indicting former Columbia president Lee Bollinger. What? I don't even remember. Was that the president of Columbia? When? I got to look that up, actually, because I'm not even, I'm not familiar with Columbia. Oh, he's a Columbia Law School. Was he the president of Columbia University? Yes, he was the 19th president of Columbia University, as it turns out. And if I go to Wikipedia, then, the 19th president of Columbia University, right, succeeded by the current president is Minouche Shafik. Remember? Is she currently the president? She's had to. Has she resigned too? Because there's now an acting president, Katrina Armstrong. So, wow. I'm sure they forced her out as well. But going back to Lee Bollinger, why? And when was Bollinger out? I'm just kind of curious, because this article, as we said, is December 2024. Bollinger is out of office by June of 2023. And he was a longtime president there, 20 years, slightly over, I think, 21 years is what it looks like. So I'm sure they're angry at him, but all right. His suggestion is to look back 2 presidents at that point, and the Justice Department would investigate him for fraud if he, through commission or omission, played a role in Columbia's submission of inaccurate data to a court, Supreme Court, the President of the United States? No, to U.S. News and World Report. What, like to get a better ranking or something? Bollinger submitted the data to boost Columbia's rank in the report. Once the true data were reported, Columbia's rank fell from 2nd to 18th, which I guess is a big material difference, although, I don't know, $10 might be able to make up the difference between 2nd and 18th for all I know. But I mean, ultimately what's happening here is, oh no, I mean, the president of the United States was faking stuff for years to get a higher ranking in the Forbes list of wealthiest Americans. But here, a university, supposedly, even if it was outright fraud, it's what? Fraud on the U.S. News and World Report? The fact that it's the U.S. News doesn't mean it's a federal entity. They're really stretching to come up with something to like charge him with. And who cares? And he isn't president anymore. We got Republicans in this country who say, we shouldn't have impeached Donald Trump the second time because by the time we got around to it, he was no longer president. But meanwhile, their idea here is we should be investigating past presidents of private educational institutions because they might have lied, maybe, to U.S. News and World Report about how to rank them. Like, that is not a federal interest at this stage of the game. Anyway, college presidents regard Bollinger as perhaps the greatest college leader of the 21st century, which must mean something. I don't know if it's true, but if it is true, then great for him. But I guess the reasoning here is, well, if they think he's a hero, we have to kill him and grind his bones into dust so that nobody ever leads an educational institution again with any integrity. And that way, we'll be able to say, no more woke ideology. Everybody teach that Donald Trump is the greatest person ever and was born a golden god in year one. That's fact. That's your history curriculum. And you're dismissed. Everybody go out drinking for the rest of the year. Everybody gets an A if you just write that down. He should be regarded, though, in his view, as the worst, which is weird because I view Donald Trump as the worst and they view him as the best. Perhaps the college presidents could learn a valuable lesson from the sight of him in an orange jumpsuit. Oh, my God, he's got to be arrested. Sent to prison because of U.S. News and World Report. This is so unhinged. It's insane. You're absolutely right for sending this one our way. Libwoman NYC. Oh, you're going to prison for it, too. I don't know. Probably in that guy's view. The second target, in case you're smugly comfortable in the fact that you didn't go to Columbia University. The second target should be the University of California, Los Angeles in particular. But by the way, I'm sure at that point you can then worm your way into destroying the entire University of California system, which has got to be, I think it's kind of hands down the pride, the crown jewel of American public higher education. And I say that as a Virginian who probably here in this state, this Commonwealth, we have a claim to having what I guess would be the second best or a contender for the second best public education system in the country. And I'm sure we'd be pushed aside. No, University of Michigan would say, no, it's us. And they might even be right. I don't know. Ask U.S. News and World Report, that corrupt bastard of an institution spawned by communist filth or something, I guess. Who knows? Anyway, but I'm very proud of the fact that I'm proud of it. I didn't do anything. I paid the taxes for it. That's good. I'm very pleased that we have such a strong state education, higher educational system here that has such a variety of institutions here that almost every Virginia college student, post-secondary education candidate student can find a good fit of the not just a campus, but the kind of campus that they want, not just an education. And here, that's where I guess I differentiate it from the University of Michigan. You have a fantastic institution of higher learning that you can go to, but your choice essentially is the gigantic campus. Or I don't know, there's others, I'm sure, but there's a wide gap in between. UC system has similarly, big campuses, small campuses, liberal arts focused campuses, research focused campuses, and that's what you see here in Virginia on a smaller scale. And it's very good. So we must destroy it. And it's not even to destroy it in favor of private education, because the first target here is private education. They're just anti everything. And it's really frightening. Why are they mad at UCLA? Because UCLA is, I would say, quote, pro-Hamas, unquote, mob, physically took over the campus. The whole thing's been burned into the ground, just like Portland, Oregon, I'm sure, calling for the genocide of Jews while physically barring them from entering the Quad. When UCLA was sued, it argued in court that it had no duty to prevent the pro-Hamas mob from physically excluding Jews. It would be fascinating to find out, his interpretation of things, fascinating to find out if UCLA President Michael Drake holds that position as a consistent institutional standard, or whether it reflects illegal discrimination, or whether it's just, gosh, it's a touchy situation and we're just trying to navigate it the best we can. No, you're pro-Hamas because you didn't kill all of these people instantly. Well, maybe your standard is backwards and upside down. The Education Department's Office of Civil Rights, if it wasn't closed, could do a compliance review seeking an answer to one simple question. If a mob of white supremacists took over the Quad, and we're thinking of it, called for the lynching of black students and physically barred black students from walking freely, would Drake have directed his lawyers to insist that this was fine and he had no duty to stop it? Golly, I do doubt it, but I don't think you actually advocate for it, although you might be advocating for that. Could you differentiate the two situations? Probably. Has there been a great deal of quote-unquote pro-Hamas murder here in the United States? Are they killing Jews left and right? Have they ever killed Jews left and right here in the United States? No, they haven't. But they have in Israel, where the war is going on. Not just this war, but all previous wars. True, understandable, bad, in fact. Is there a long and, I guess you'd have to say rich history of white supremacists murdering black Americans left and right here in the United States? Yes. Has it ever happened in L.A.? Yes. Is that maybe a different situation? Yes. Not to you, though, because you're trying to make the simple, stupid point. So where were we? If Drake were willing to attest under oath, and I doubt that he would be, that he would have permitted white supremacists free reign, now that would be one thing. That'd be okay with us. Then we'd go do it. If he wouldn't, then clearly his institution treated anti-Jewish racism differently than it would have treated anti-black racism, because they're the same thing in some senses, but not all. If UCLA wanted to keep its federal funding, it should settle that investigation by firing Drake. That shouldn't be all for UCLA, though. That's not enough. We got to destroy it. As the Washington Free Beacon, the Daily Mail, I guess, of Washington, D.C., has documented, UCLA prioritizes race over merit in medical school admissions. Nope. This could literally cost untold lives. Allowing UCLA to continue to govern admissions to its medical school is a public health hazard. Like he cares. It should no longer be permitted to make its own admissions decisions. We'll nationalize it. That's not all. What about enforcing students for fair admissions versus Harvard? This brings us to the Supreme Court Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard decision, banning affirmative action, which Trump has promised to implement to the hilt, whatever that may mean. The first step should be forcing Harvard University to comply. Because really, shouldn't that be the first thing you do every morning when you get up? Right after the decision was issued, Harvard all but publicly vowed to do everything in its power to violate the spirit of the Supreme Court's ruling and the 14th Amendment on which it was based. But now they're 14th Amendment fans, huh? McMahon should initiate a never-ending compliance review. Put that down on paper. Never-ending compliance review, so that it can always be regarded as a good faith compromise or compliance review instead of what you said. To ensure that Harvard follows the law, she should assign that self-same and already closed Office of Civil Rights to the employees there to the Harvard admissions office, just embed them there, and direct the university to hold no admissions meeting without their physical presence. Just a total physical takeover of a private institution. Because small government. The Office of Civil Rights should be copied on every email correspondence, and Harvard should be forced to provide a written rationale for every admissions decision to ensure non-discrimination. Now, by the way, had a Democratic administration ever demanded that OCR employees be embedded in everything and that they make the decision at the direction of a Democratic president of every admission to Harvard, they'd be crying bloody murder. Outrageous. Communism, socialisms, everything, Russian takeover, yada, yada. You'd never hear the end of it. Big government, drown in the bathtub. And yet, curiously, once again, we find that every Republican accusation is in fact a confession. It's exactly the way they want to do it. So here's where we are. If the OCR finds a shred of evidence of racial discrimination, Harvard should lose its Title IV funds, them too. If Harvard wants this monitoring to end, it can voluntarily agree to relinquish all discretion over its admissions process. By the way, do you think that Max Eden here, we're not going to get to the end of this article by any stretch of the imagination, but Max Eden, big fan of the voting rights section at the Department of Justice, monitoring any changes in election laws in formerly Confederate states. Do we think that that's something that he supports and having people on the ground making those decisions for the states? No, of course, it's been states' rights and a constant push against all of that. And everybody from the George W. Bush administration onward, politicizing everything that they could inside of the Department of Justice to make sure that that mission was quashed and reversed entirely. And now, of course, first chance they get, they want to impose the same regime, but on private educational institutions with which they do not agree about something. Doesn't matter what it is, because they'll just conflate anything that they got into another target. There's much more to it. I suggest you read it. I don't know. It is very frightening. So frightening that we can't actually just read straight through it because it prompts comments about how crazy and unhinged it is at every single turn. So, yes, that's the next goal. Enforce this Supreme Court precedent in crazy ways. And then next up, how Trump can destroy DEI on campus. And the answer is label everything DEI and hit it with a hammer. And that should do it. And then shaking up college accreditation. That's something they want to take over as well. And now a new kind of public college. What kind would it be? Well, it would be like the new college down in Florida, and all under the personal control of Chris Rufo as well. It's a very frightening vision, but it is underway today at the Department of Education, where the doors are shut. Now, there's a million other things we didn't get to today. A lot of time taken up with the technical issues. By the way, speaking of higher education issues, Walt Nauta, remember Trump's valet, been appointed to the board of visitors there at the Naval Academy. Because why not? Nautical. That's nautical, right?
You have been listening to Kagro in the morning with David Waldman.
Now, he actually is a Navy veteran, a enlisted veteran, and a high-ranking enlisted veteran at that. But whether or not he belongs on the Board of Visitors, no, probably not. Now, Justice Putnam takes over, of course, next with the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. But his description of it is all over in Skype, and I have to click to find it. So just stay tuned and be surprised. See you tomorrow.